Jiménez Rico, en esta película Vestida de Azul abordas un tema realmente difícil y además se da la circunstancia de que los protagonistas son personajes que interpretan en el cine lo que les ha ocurrido en la vida real. Cuéntanos un poco la película.
Sí, a mí me interesó un poco indagar sobre el mundo del transexualismo, indagar un poco sobre el mundo de estos seres humanos que en un momento determinado de sus vidas, estos hombres, deciden convertirse en mujeres. Y la forma mejor era no escribir un guión y contratar unos actores y que lo hicieran, sino meterme en sus propias vidas, meterme en sus intimidades, en fotografiarles, seguirles, escucharles, rodarles y que fueran ellos mismos los que vivieran su propio problema. Y eso es Vestida de Azul.
En la película, ¿cómo has visto el producto?
Yo lo he visto todo fenomenal, una producción muy bonita, hemos dicho toda la realidad de la vida nuestra, y yo estoy contentísima y admiro a este pueblo de San Sebastián porque mis abuelos eran de aquí, de la parte de San Sebastián, de Tolosa. Yo soy arana del primer apellido y me siento también en que sea andaluza, un poquito vasca, nada más.
¿Os costó mucho el rodaje, el trabajo como actrices?
Bueno, sí nos costó un poquito porque tuvimos muchas horas de trabajo y aparte de eso, no sé, es mi primera película que he hecho y estoy muy contenta, tanto con este director que es Jiménez Rico, que es maravilloso, con Teo Escamilla y mis compañeras. Muy bien.
¿Qué acogida habéis visto en el público?
Fenomenal. Yo, por ejemplo, me he dado cuenta que la gente se ha dado cuenta que somos nosotras, Josep, Loren, Eva y Nacha, simplemente eso.
Se ha cumplido un poco el sueño de hacer un producto artísticamente bueno, informar, etcétera. ¿Es un sueño que se ha cumplido? ¿Cómo lo veis?
Bueno, de eso estábamos seguras, puesto que el director y el productor eran unas personas maravillosas en ese trabajo. Y estábamos seguras de ese éxito en cuanto a realizar la película.
Me ha parecido fenomenalmente realizada, es un mundo que me ha dejado asombrada por la realidad de él y al mismo tiempo pues entristecida, ¿no? Porque me parece que esta gente no es nada feliz. Antonio Jiménez Ricos ha hecho realmente ha conseguido una ambientación, por supuesto, claro, de la realidad, ¿no? Y lo ha conseguido, porque a mí me ha impresionado la película, es algo realmente impresionada.
Me ha gustado mucho la película y lo que más me ha asombrado es cómo ellos, como intérpretes, se han abierto, digamos. Es decir, no están interpretando un papel, están interpretando su propia vida y a mí es lo que más me parece más admirable, aparte de la sensibilidad de Teo Escamilla y de Jiménez Rico para llevar a la pantalla estas imágenes que hemos visto. Son bastante estremecedoras.
Gracias.
Bueno, a mí me ha gustado muchísimo, mucho. Y es un mundo que desconocía absolutamente y me ha interesado muchísimo. Además me he emocionado al final, o sea, me han gustado muchísimo los personajes, están muy bien.
¿Y a ti?
Parece una película fantástica y la fotografía de Teo excepcional como siempre y lleva muy bien el documental mezclado con la ficción, parece un producto excepcional, sí, muy bien.
Hola.
Hello, good morning.
¿Qué tal? Bienvenidos a todos.
Good morning, welcome. This is a talk in the framework of Pensamiento y Debate. We're going to talk about Dressed in Blue, Trans Memory and Activism at the festival in 19 1983. 40 years ago, this documentary was screened here at the festival, and soon the second season of the series will be screened as well, which is based on this documentary. I'm going to introduce you the wonderful people that accompany me here. First of all, we have Julen Zabala, philosopher, degree in philosophy and science of education at the University of the Basque Country. He's a librarian and a militant of EGAN, the movement of sexual liberation in the Basque Country. Ana de la Rosa, director, scriptwriter, and producer. He's a producer of the Veneno series and also XX and Farrucas. Lola Rodriguez, main character of Veneno, where she plays the role of Valeria Vegas. She's worked in Poliamor para Principantes and Bienvenidos a Edenant. Nacha Sánchez, who's participated in a number of productions. She's a militant of the defense and advocacy of the LGBTIQ plus community. And I would like to start by asking you a question, Nacha. After seeing these images, what memories do they bring to you? And can you tell us about the screening of the film at the festival? Well, I'm very moved, really, especially taking into consideration that the other main characters are not here with us anymore. So I just want to have a moment here to think about them. And, it brings fond memories. After 40 years, I hadn't seen these images, and I feel really moved. And I'm very sorry that the other girls are not here with us anymore. Yes, there was a press conference there where there were a number of different interactions. What are your memories concerning these interactions, and how did the audience receive this film in this very particular context back in 1983? Yes, there was a press conference in the morning, and then in the evening, the film was, the documentary was screened. And I remember that in the morning, the press didn't react very well. It was, I think, the audience that accepted and welcomed the film better. The members of the press and the media didn't really believe what they were looking at. We were showing publicly everyone how our life was at the time. That was 40 years ago. And that had consequences on us. I mean, out in the street, people who knew you would call you names, and they would even spit at us and humiliate us. And there were other people who would ask for an autograph as well, so there was a bit of everything. And other people didn't have the possibility to take their lives to the cinema, would talk to us. And I think that the evening when the film was screened, when the documentary ended, lights went off in the theater, and then suddenly there was this light coming from the screen that came on us. And I'm very moved when I talk about this. I'm very sorry. And everybody turned around and gave us a 15-minute round of applause. It was so amazing. It was a huge step for us. Thank you very much, Nacha, for being here with us, and thank you for sharing your experience. Julen, what can you tell us about your experience? You are from San Sebastian, you're an activist. Can you tell us more about the context back in 1983? Well, I will go back in time. I've been a member of EGAN since 1979, and there's a key event back in 79, which is that Francis was killed in Renteria, in a town in the Basque Country. Francis was a travestite, what we call the transformist, a transformista in Spanish, and he was killed in June 79, and that changed everything. It was a game changer. At the time, we were already working at EGAN, also in Bilbao and San Sebastian as well. And it was a game changer, as I said. Why? Because of the way this was shown in the press. He was killed in a disco in Renteria together with a police officer, and the press would say a man dressed as a woman has been killed. There was this very clear transphobia there, and it really was shocking for us. Then we had gay and lesbians out in the streets to protest against this murder. And 2 days after he was killed, there was this demonstration where we had gays and lesbians demonstrating. It was like our first 28th of June. And ever since that year, we've had demonstrations every single year to pay a tribute to Francis. So, little by little, from then on, we started to be in the media. We became more and more visible every day. And I think that as a consequence of that, we started to have this relationship with the San Sebastian Film Festival. Someone called us because there was this cycle in the festival called Barrios y Pueblos, Neighborhoods and Towns. And one of these cycles was carried out by a feminist group, and there was one cycle that was organized by EGAN, by my group, and we played a number of different films like Flor de Otoño. So people from EGAN were in charge of the debates and Q&As, etc. So gays and lesbians at the time had this very close relationship with San Sebastian Film Festival in Victoria Eugenia. And there, at the cafeteria, we had a meeting point where we held our meetings. And, we also had fun in the evening. And then underneath what is now the Victoria Eugenia Theatre, there was this room that was the first place for gays called La Gotera, which is the leak, Spanish for leak. And so I went back to 79, but then in 1982, the festival opened with Querelle by Fassbinder, who had just died then. It was the first film that was shown in the festival, and it was a scandal. Why? Because back in 1982, the president of the Basque government was Carlos Garay-Coetxea, and the Ministry for Culture was Soledad Becerril. She was the first women minister, regional minister in the Basque Country since the dictatorship. And then they both watched Querelle's film together with other public authorities. And I think they just stayed there for 10, 15 minutes, and then they left the theater. And so in 1983, when Dressed in Blue was screened, Querelle was in this section I just mentioned, Barrios y Pueblos, Neighborhoods and Towns. And so showed this film, and it is obvious, I can't remember who, but members of the organization of San Sebastian Film Festival included some of our activists, no doubt, because we had films by Eloy de la Iglesia, who screened here many, many movies. So that is a bit the context we had back then when Dressed in Blue was screened. It's true, as Nacha said, that the opinions of the press were quite negative, but the audience welcomed the film and really liked it. Let me say here that 40 years ago, the festival was completely different to what it is now. 1983 was a year where the festival was no longer A category or category A. So it was rebuilding itself, rethinking itself, and then in August 1983, there was a huge flood in the Basque Country. And then, therefore, it was I think it was a dark age, generally speaking, but films like this one brought some light to it. That's what I remember. Those are the memories I have from back then. Yeah, you knew the film before being involved in the project. Can you tell us more about that? Well, I think it was Veneno, with Veneno, where I met Valeria, and I was completely struck by her figure and everything she's done for a collective. I'm here thanks to her. And so the film is back in the mainstream world. She actually rescued it because this film was a little bit lost, and she was the only one who carried out research and did everything she could to rescue the film and give it the value and the recognition that these women deserve. Unfortunately, many of them didn't get it. So with Veneno, with this project, I fell in love with Nacha. It is an honor for me to be next to her here. She's made history with one of the best speeches I've seen in all my life. So I feel very lucky. I'm glad there is a continuation here thanks to the series, a series that's very nice, that we've developed with love, to tell stories about our group of people made up by thousands and millions. It's not just Veneno or Dressed in Blue. This is just the beginning of a long path. Because we are heroes, and our story deserves to be told. So I feel really fortunate to be here. Good. And how was the process to document yourself, to carry out the project of the series? Well, I was a script writer at Veneno, and I wrote an episode of Dressed in Blue. I didn't know Cristina. It was like, it rang a bell. I myself come from Almería in southeastern Spain, and I had heard about her. Now I know her very much, quite deeply. As for Dressed in Blue, it wasn't even a documentary that was under my radar, really. And that makes me think, actually, of the ignorance of how the trans history is unknown by the audience. So thank you very much for this context that you've given us. I had no idea, absolutely no idea, of so many things you've told us. So it looks like we're working through the desert. We've seen some images here, and in the interviews we see people saying, "Oh, I've realized that these people have a very special life." And 40 years later, you realize that, maybe something could have changed over 40 years, but actually this is not the case. So we're like discovering something new. I was called to participate in the project, and I realized that there are so many things I don't know about. Suddenly we see that people accepted the film, welcomed the film, but it was like buried by the press, and then the audience saw some light there, but then they lacked a political decision that didn't come. So male trans are not visible. I was asking Nacha earlier on, and back then, whether trans men, and she said, well, yeah, 3, 4, but they were invisible. And this is still the case currently, I'm afraid.
Yo creo que el problema que
I think that the problem here was not the lack of visibility. The problem is that there were very few people who were capable of telling our story, and we were different. We had to fight for telling the story, to be able to work, to be able to keep going. And this is why male trans were not very much seen, because it was easier to live on and work for everybody else, but it wasn't our case. It's not that there weren't many of us, but things have changed very slowly. And this is still true currently, isn't it? These are two sides of the same coin. I mean, on the one hand, you're more protected because you're not suffering such an explicit violence by walking out in the street. I may seem to be gay, but nobody thinks that I am a trans guy. Nevertheless, you very often suffer that. Yes, and back then, we were quite scandalous, and we wanted to be seen. Let's be realistic. We wanted everyone to see us. And of course, everybody saw us. Even the police saw us, really. Yes, but going beyond that, because I'm thinking about the question, what happens so that you are capable of telling your stories? I think that we made a documentary, but we didn't realize that we were making a documentary. We had so many things in our heads, so many ideas that didn't materialize, that didn't come true. They looked for 5, 6 people for the documentary, and we made it, but we never thought about what we were making. It was visible for a while, and then it was forgotten. And it had very bad reviews because we were treated as crazy people. And then the comments by Loren concerning the high society of the time. Jiménez Rico wanted to make the negative things visible. Actually, we didn't have a script, you know. We shot so many things day after day that he could have made 6 more films with all that material. He would shoot everything. He came home while we were having breakfast, and he would shoot that. He went to Giuseppe's place and saw Giuseppe's parents at a bar, and he would shoot that as well. René in the hairdressers was also shot. So out of all that material, he just picked the parts that he wanted. And the films that he's developed have been huge successes, except for Dressed in Blue. But he focused on that negative side of things. I having a fight with the church. Imagine that. A wonderful scene, by the way. And who controls the narrative there? Well, he controlled the narrative, actually. But then, over time, people like you... at the time, people like you were not visible, but there were many of them. We were so many of us. There were so many of us, but we had trouble when it came to accessing work and jobs. I mean, you were either an artist or a prostitute. But that was not true, simply not true. Some people are good at something and some people are good at something else. And if you don't have money, how are you going to study and carry out some studies and have a degree? No, but you just move on. So we really needed to work. We needed to work. Transsexual people could do so many things. They could do any type of job, really. Cleaning. I am an industrial decorator, but I've never worked as such. And, you know, we had some, these big boobs, and we were not hired anywhere. So how was it to come back after the documentary, after being San Sebastian Film Festival? How was it for you to go back to your actual life after the film was screened in cinemas? Were you recognized out in the street? How were you treated by the audience? Well, I hadn't come back to San Sebastian. This is my first time after the film. Well, I've been here, but due to a number of different projects, I cannot mention yet. And that's it. And if I keep talking, I'll talk about other things, other projects. We're here to talk about Dressed in Blue, right? Let's focus. Because I'm not allowed to speak about other projects. I want to talk about Dressed in Blue and about all of you. about Victoria Vegas and the book.
El que ustedes hayan...
Yes, and I feel that, you know, in the documentary we have people that from the street and that are transformed into characters, and then we see how these individuals go back to their ordinary lives, and I guess that over time you didn't have any relationship there. When you're nobody, because back then we were nobody, and we're still nobody, at least me, you are given this possibility to show all this, and I think that we all thought that we were going to be called for other projects, but it wasn't like that. Nobody thought about us anymore. I moved abroad myself, but no, not really. We didn't have much of a repercussion. And going back to your ordinary life, after this, it could have been seen as a failure. I was called to participate in a series, an important series in this country, in Spain. And after my experience in Dressed in Blue, I said, me, again? No, thank you. No, thank you, because the same thing will happen again to me. I come from this failure, and I don't want this to happen again to me. We did everything we could, but then nothing happened, artistically speaking, professionally speaking, because I love the documentary, don't misunderstand me, and I did my best. But then nothing happened, really.
That's life, I understand. Okay, we have the trailer of the second season of Veneno, Dressed in Blue. We can watch it now, and then we will comment on it.
Oye, una cosa, chicas. ¿Se acuerdan de la película esta de Vestida de Azul?
Sí, ya nadie lo ve.
¿Sabes cómo podría dar con alguna de ellas?
Es que eso hace tanto tiempo que muchas tienen que estar muertas.
¿Tú por casualidad no sabrás que fue de una de ellas?
No voy a hablar de nada contigo.
Solo dime si está viva, por favor.
Te dije que no quería hablar de nada.
Ya, van a hacer solo un par de preguntas.
Lo siento.
Estoy perdida, mamá.
Tú estás dando voz a mucha gente que nunca la tuvo, cariño.
Que lo de Cristina fue un mega éxito. Estoy seguro que también.
Perdona.
¿Estás buscando a René?
Creo que a lo mejor te puedo ayudar.
Yo conocí a la Loren.
Apunta, apunta.
Sé que hay una historia ahí. No puede quedar en el olvido.
¿Te imaginas entrar a un sitio y ser una mujer más?
Tienes que intentarlo, hijo. Hazlo por tus padres.
Para nosotros no es fácil que ningún hombre nos quiera y que nos respete.
Hola.
¿Nos conocemos?
No entiendo cómo no te da pena tirar la basura todos estos años, Miguel.
¿Cómo no me va a dar pena?
¿Verdad que no quieres ser madre?
Y si no quieres ser madre, tenemos que respetarla.
Quiero ser madre por haber tenido una madre como tú.
No dejes de ser tú.
No sé qué habría sido de nosotras sin ti.
¡Invertido! ¡Satán!
El día de mañana te vas a tragar tus putas palabras, ¿sabes por qué? Porque me vas a ver ahí fuera triunfando.
¿Otro libro?
Sí.
Ay, Dios mío, otro libro.
Bueno, increíble que el tráiler...
It's incredible because the trailer ends with the scene San Sebastian. Fantastic. Nacha, how do you feel now? Your story is going to be shown on screen again. I'm so happy. Some of them are alive, and I've said it all. Yani Lola, how do you feel you will be part of this series? This is so important for the queer community. How do you feel being part of this community? I feel very fortunate, very privileged. At the same time, it makes me grow, it makes me understand, and it makes me want to know more about that time and these people. for me, I feel very, very fortunate because I'm the result of women like you and women like the ones we've seen on screen. At the end of the day, we are creating a safe space for us so that girls and boys have references so that these young people have the possibility to identify themselves. They have representatives. When I was young, I thought that nobody understood me. It's important to have role models on the screen. I feel very, very much empowered now, thanks to life and thanks to this series. I know that this series has a great transvisibility on screen, but behind the cameras, in pre-production, in editing, what about the departments behind the cameras? Do you feel it? Yes, of course. These are very safe spaces for the whole trans community. There's a person for each department. We've been cared of, and we've had conciliation conferences, information talks for diversity, for in all department. All the members of the team know about this, and they have been trained. And we are not strange people anymore. We're not aliens, and people know how to deal with us, and the intention is very positive. And the easy thing now is that all actresses, we the vulnerable actresses, we have been respected, we have been treated with care, with love. Nobody asks us anything, and we can do a very good job.
Hecho un gran trabajo.
I think that they've done a fantastic job. It shouldn't be an effort, but there is some effort behind it, behind the scenes, behind the camera, because people needed training, a little bit of information. There was a trans person in each department, a hired person, and we have demonstrated that it's possible for other movies, for other series. This is possible. This is not just for Dressed in Blue. This should happen with all the series, with all diversities. I think it's very important to speak about the producers, producing companies. You, Nacha, in the documentary, you were treated in a different way by the producing company. And this shows the great progress and the great developments that have happened. Any people wanted to ask a question or a comment, you can ask for the microphone.
Ahí, la primera pregunta. Se hace el micrófono.
A microphone, please, otherwise we cannot hear and we cannot translate. I'm sorry. Okay, after the movie, well, are you talking about the documentary in '83? Yes. We didn't have very good relationships between us. At the end of the documentary, I decided to go abroad. I was called to make another movie. It was Página de Sucesos. We did chapter 13 with some of the ladies dressed in blue, because we were 6 at the time. But the relationship between us was very cold. We didn't have a real relationship, and I left the country. I lived abroad. When I came back many years ago, now I live in Galicia, and until I took part in a new project, I never knew about my colleagues. I didn't know some of them died. I didn't know why they died. And now in this new project, I discovered, and I was given information. My friends disappeared one by one. There's another one. Josep is alive. She's changed her concept. He's a man now, and there's another concept, and now he's got a new name, Josette, and now his name is José. He's a man. He is respected, but the 4 other ladies disappeared, and in fact they died in very bad conditions, very bad situations because of their lives, excess, addictions, whatever. But I mean, they died, and that's what I knew many years later. Thank you.
¿Tiene alguna otra pregunta que quiera hacer? Ah, sí, arriba. No sé si hay un micrófono que se le pueda acercar.
Microphone, please.
Vale, si quieres decirle, yo le repito el micrófono, a ver si...
Microphone, please. We cannot hear without the use of the microphone. Sorry. Before Dressed in Blue, in Spain, there was Álvaro Lozcona. He was a commentator. He made a documentary in Madrid from the Gay Club. There was the club in Madrid where all the famous transformists in Spain had their shows, and some of the transsexual, Jerry Brown, and all the transsexual artists went to this pub. The name of this documentary is Alma de Mujer. You can watch it in Televisión Española. There's a specific chapter. We did this Alma de Mujer in the Gay Club, and that it was focused on transformists and their shows. Eliane was a transsexual. She was a great star. And at the time, we transsexual people, we were called transvestites, travestis. It was a horrible word. It was an insult. At the time, we started to walk in the streets. We went to clubs. We had our shows in cabarets, and we started in prostitution. So we were known for that. Well, the show Alma de Mujer had other branches. In fact, these three people, some of them were dressed in women in order to become prostitutes. I was chosen, and from home I was interviewed. They asked me where I worked, how I worked. That was the focus. Teo Escamilla and Antonio Jiménez Rico had this information. They spoke with the people from Ascona, and they proposed me to shoot this documentary Dressed in Blue at the time, because they had known about my existence and our shows. How was the script writing, Jan? What about the script writing? It was Veneno. I wasn't the screenwriter in Dressed in Blue, but in Veneno, the series, it was a total immersion in Christina's life. When I got to the project, they had already started to work. There was a lot of material that I could dive in. Always with this focus, because we had different sub-teams for screenwriting, and I worked with Ada Martín, Silvia Costa Freda, and the three of us, we were a very good team. I have a very good memory, and we put our attention, our focus on telling the story of Veneno from a place where you can understand this character, that she suffered a lot due to the television, to society, to the treatment. And you need to understand how Cristina Veneno gets to the place where she was at the end of her life. And don't look over your shoulder. We want to honor this reference, this role model. Many people didn't like her, but she was a great role model. We cannot deny it. And we should honor her existence and her character too. There was a great spirit. Of course, we were writing the script of a series that was very, very exciting already. We got to empathize with that person, this figure. She was already gone. She died previously, and we knew about the environment and the people who knew Veneno. They accepted to speak. She was a goddess for the people who knew her, and they wanted to speak and to talk about her, even if she wasn't there anymore. For me, Cristina Ortiz is part of my life. She's part of my professional life too. It's a very important project for me. For all the people who were working in the team, it was a great leap forward. And we always thought, would she love this, Cristina? What would she think about this? And I try to be in her head. I want to talk with her I wanted my wish was that she was very proud of the series. What was your relationship with Valeria? What are the changes in the second season of the series? In Veneno, and now in the second season, it's inspired on Valeria, the professional part in research, script writing, etc. For the personal side of my character, there's another perspective. We want to show other realities, other situations. We are closer to reality, picking stories and fragments from other women. And I had this sincere and deep admiration towards Valeria. I'm so happy to have Valeria in our community. She was a success story. She continues to work with us, and she's very, very, very precious to us. This is a different creative process in the second part. And myself, as Lola, I can give a lot to my character. It's been a very enriching process with admiration towards Valeria, but I wanted also to focus on the new character that I have, and I want to be very honest with the script. It seems a little bit of some self-criticism that we really need. Very shy, in a very shy way, in the trans narrative. I'm not talking just about male trans characters who are in fact invisible characters. Now I'm doing this first movie about this male trans people, and we want to stop saying that conflict equals trans people. In Veneno, okay, I can understand. It was a biopic. This is the narrative. Let's talk about her life. And she's a trans woman, okay? And I want to underline that. And I celebrate that. I think it's okay. But I want more. In Dressed in Blue, there's something that remains. I want to be analytical, and there's this remaining part of these characters. But in Valeria, suddenly, and in Sacha's character too, we started to give more nuance, and we wanted to make steps forward. This identity conflict in trans people still remains, but it's not the axis anymore. It's not the core anymore. We start to tell different things. We talk about their daily lives. How after your transit, after your change, how do you live? It's not a happy ending. You've been transiting, and now you're a different person, but it's not the end of it. You have a new life. How do you live? What do you want? How I get to my goals? How can I have a normal life? It's revolutionary. We're not in a limbo anymore. We have a new life. We want to have children. And there is a whole body diversity, and this is something that we need to open and develop. These are very small steps, and I'm very, very demanding and self-demanding. And from the narrative and the artistic point of view, I always wanted to do more. This is just the beginning of this new vision, but it's tiring. And I'm tired of these old movies about trans people. It's not the end. There's a new phase now. And this happens because we trans people, we're not talking about our lives. We're not telling our stories. So we need a new narrative, because the way has been so difficult. Trans plus artistic lives are so difficult. But still, today, people insist on conflict. Oh, yes, this little girl wants to be a boy. This boy wants to be a girl. That's fantastic. This process is fantastic. But it's painful. And it is only told as if it was painful. But maybe you don't know what happens in our heads. Gets out of the narrative. Let's go down to the nitty-gritty of our real lives. That's what we want to tell now.
Julen, ¿vos querías decir algo?
Sí, quería aportar, bueno, lo de Veneno.
Okay. In Veneno and in Dressed in Blue, I think that this approach is very important because we need to recover our historical memory, the memory of our movement, and recover the memories of all those people, especially trans people, who offered their bodies. Today, it's a different vision. It's 40 years later since the beginning of the trans movement in Spain. It was in 1977 with COFLE, with the community coordinators, with all the groups. I can say that this is like coffee. In that time, I had cortado solo and con leche coffee. Today, we have a myriad, a huge number of coffee styles. And we can say LGBT plus whatever, with and adding tres, etc. But of course, because in the past we were queer, transvestites, and gays and lesbians. That's it. Transsexuality at the time was the limit of homosexuality, and it wasn't an extreme. It was a limit. It was condemned. It was a condemned homosexuality at the time. But what's important now is to recover these 40 years memories. Things have changed a lot. And now remembered in 1983, several days before the premiere of this film in the festival, Ocaña died. Several days before. You see the context? Ocaña was a real transgression in her life. We've seen the pictures in the presentation in the festival. Loren, she's the oldest. She's from Tolosa, and I am from Tolosa. I was born there. I didn't know she was Basque. That would have been a role model for an 18-year-old boy. She would have been a fantastic role model, and we need to recall these old stories. Thanks to this documentary. Without this documentary, we would have known nothing about the lives of these women. So we now have these archives, we have this testimony, and they are witnesses. After 40 years, we need to look back and see who was Ocaña. You see the lady who is giving them flowers. This lady was a myth in the festival. She always offered flowers to all the artists. In 1981, Vicente Amestoy was a transgressive painter from Andoain. He dressed in pospolinia, which is a very typical costume, folkloric costume in the Basque Country. He was dressed in pospolinia costume. He was dressed as a woman with high heels, and this guy did the same as this old lady with the flowers. And he offered pine branches to all the artists, because the whole of the Basque Country was planted with pines which were planted for the paper industry at the time. So we had pine forests all over the place in the Basque Country, and he dressed in a woman's dress. He was offering these pine branches, and this was an example. Many people did things like that. The same year, and I suppose it was a real circus, because Vicente Amestoy was dressed in pospolinia, offering the branches, and he was complaining. And the Orquesta Mondragón was there with Javier Gurruchaga. He was presenting one of his records, and he went into the theater. They started to sing, and they were expelled. So it was quite a scandal. If you read the chronicles of those years, and this is part of the archives of the festival, you will see that, in fact, the same year, many artists were there at the same time. Eduardo Ibars, another artist, many people, the same year. People from the community with transgressive actions. We took advantage of the festival, and we took advantage of this week to be heard of. We want to recover this memory. I think it's essential, not only for the new series and new projects that are being done now, but because of to honor those people. Is this festival more conservative now? You tell me this, and then I don't know. I want to be more transgressive, and I think this festival is more conservative. What is your opinion? It's my question. If you see the program, you will see the difference of the program of this festival. After Franco died, there was a real revolution in the 70s. The history of our festival, it was very punky at the time, yes. And it lost the A category at the time because it wasn't a conservative type of a festival. It wasn't a pedigree festival at the time because there were many social movements behind. There was a lot of violence also. It was quite subversive. But then it got standard. It was normalized. It was more a standard festival, and it recovered the A category. So it's not we're not now in a punky festival, not at all. Anybody else would like to ask a question?
Sí.
Again, we're very sorry, but if no mic's being used, the sound doesn't reach the booth and we cannot translate. Well, I think that you want to know what I think about how we've changed, right? Well, I think that the change has been wonderful, fabulous.
De momento las chicas.
Girls currently can study, they can work, they can ask for help and support. And in the past, the support was, this question will be one question too much. I mean, it won't be necessary to even ask this question.
¿Alguien tiene alguna otra pregunta?
Does anybody have any further questions?
Bueno, y si no con eso...
And if this is not the case, we're going to close this session. Let me thank Pablo Laparra and Beatriz Crespo, who work at the archive for this festival, and thank you for making this roundtable possible. This archive has been opened this year, and everything is available for any researcher who would like to use the material or the films that have been screened or shown in the festival. I thank you all. Thank you for this time. Elias Querejeta, Cinema School, Kauri Simon from Morgan Crea. Thank you all for your support. He's helped us with all the material. Pastor de Zuma sent us the wonderful trailer that we've been able to see here. And June, Ian, Lola, Nacha, thank you very much for being here. Thank you for your time. Thank you very much for sharing with us your experience. Have a nice day.